Well, it was like he was riding a Fiesta Prado horse, and the horse got away from him.
They're on tradition. My wife has. So there's Craig. I live
More than you do.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is our August 2nd, 2018 meeting. Call to order, please. Roll call.
Commissioner Aceves?
Here.
Commissioner Geyer?
Here.
Commissioner Hartman? Commissioner Scanian? Here. Commissioner Lavanino? Here. Commissioner Richardson? Here. Commissioner Stark?
Here.
Commissioner Waterfield? Commissioner Welt?
Here.
And Commissioner Wolf. Let the record reflect that Commissioners Hartman, Waterfield, and Wolf are absent.
Thank you. At this time, would you please join me and stand for the pledge? Jim?
Place your hand over your heart. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jim.
Play ball.
Yeah.
The next item of business is the approval of minutes of the June 7, 2018 meeting. Can I please get a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. Been moved and second. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Scanian? Aye. Commissioner Lavanino?
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Chair Welt?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item of business is to administer the oath of office to newly elected alternate special district member David Seymour. David.
And David, if I can have you please stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, David Seymour, do solemnly swear
I, David Seymour, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States,
that I bear true
faith and allegiance,
faith. Say it again, please.
sorry, I apologize, that I will bear true faith and allegiance
That I bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and to the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion
for purpose
or
or
of evasion
I'm really screwing up here today. Sorry. Say it again.
or purpose of evasion,
Or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
That I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which
the duties upon which
I am about to enter.
that I'm about to enter.
Yay! Welcome aboard.
No more nervous than I
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on today's agenda. Are there any requests to speak on items not on the agenda?
Chair Welt, members of the Commission, we have no requests to speak on general public comment today.
Thank you. The next item of business is approval of the consent calendar. Are there any comments or questions from the Commission? If there are no comments, can I please get a motion?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Ishkanian? Commissioner Lavanino?
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Chair Welt?
Aye. The next item is business item 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to consider attendance at the 2018 LAFCO Annual Conference at the Tenaya Lodge in Yosemite, October 3rd through the 5th, 2018.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Hood, LAFCO Executive Officer. I know that you haven't reminded the remote testimony from Santa Barbara to turn off their microphones when they're not voting. We had an issue a couple of months ago, so just a reminder on that.
Thank you.
The Cal LAFCO annual conference is going to be held in Tenaya Lodge in Yosemite, October 3rd through the 5th. And so we're looking to determine which commissioners would like to attend that conference. There's 2 elements to that. One is the registration fee that needs to be paid, and also the mobile workshop fee if commissioners wanted to go on a mobile workshop. But it seems like the bigger issue at this point is hotel reservations. In the Cal LAFCO information that was sent out, I reviewed with you back in June. The deadline cutoff date for reservations at the hotel was September 1st. However, we have been trying to make reservations at the Tenaya Lodge for the past several weeks, and the block of rooms that Cal LAFCO had reserved is completely booked at this point. Jacqueline has been doing her best. Pamela Miller is trying to find some alternative hotels that can honor the conference rate, some of which may be in the same location, roughly in Fish Camp. Others are in Oakhurst, which is some distance from the conference site, 20-minute drive. I point that out because last year we had a similar issue in San Diego where we only had a couple of commissioners that were able to stay at the hotel conference site, and others were staying some distance away in adjacent hotels. So I think the best thing to do at this point is determine which commissioners would like to attend. If you wanted to attend Tuesday, checking out on Friday, if the mobile workshop is on Wednesday morning, usually it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it would be necessary that you spend Tuesday night. And if you just want to spend Tuesday night because of travel, that would be fine too. And then check out on Friday. And I know the conference rate is extended 3 days prior to the conference and 3 days after the conference. It just depends where that would be. So in any event, I think we're looking now at this point for commissioners who are wanting to attend the conference. And so that would be a good place to begin. And if it's Tuesday through Friday or Wednesday through Friday, or if there's some other dates at your own expense that you wish to stay before the conference or after the conference. Jacqueline, did you have anything else to say on that?
Do you want a show of hands now, or should we get in touch with Jacqueline?
It probably would be good to have a show of hands, but if you need to check your calendars, you could also get in touch with Jacqueline. I'd like to know today roughly how many commissioners would be requiring rooms and when they would be requiring. The registration I don't think is due for a few weeks at least. September 14th, I think the registration closes, so you have a little bit of time for that. And also there's some cancellations on the hotels. If we book a hotel for you, I think it's 72 hours usually in advance of the check-in time.
Well, then just a general poll. How many are interested in going? Show of hands.
I've already indicated. I'm not sure.
Anybody in Santa Barbara? Roger? Craig? You guys going to go to Yosemite?
Neither Craig and I will be attending.
Okay. Okay.
We will not be attending.
Thank you.
I think David Seymour said that he would check his calendar.
Okay. Okay.
And-
Paul, is this an annual problem with the number of rooms not being available?
Yeah, where's the 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is that Pamela's problem, that she's not getting enough rooms for the?
They're not.
Not sure. That's the diplomatic answer to that.
Is there some way that we can ensure that this doesn't happen next year?
Well, our conference in Santa Barbara in 2016, I think we had adequate rooms.
Right.
Didn't seem to be an issue. Now they have a conference facilitator at LAFCO that takes care of all the arrangements, and it doesn't seem to me not to be too critical that it's working that well, because you would want to book enough rooms, block the rooms out at the conference rate sufficiently that when the September 1st deadline approaches or gets close, you can cancel the rooms that aren't booked. But it seems kind of interesting that as of the end of last week in July, that there were no rooms available when the September 1st date is still over a month away. So I don't know where the
Do we have any strength in making sure that doesn't happen next year, for example?
well, I think we definitely need to.
Can we twist somebody's arm to make sure that?
I'm really surprised in talking to my colleagues, some of my colleagues, that they booked their rooms several weeks ago, even knowing that the deadline was going to be September 1st. And they would book, per LAFCO, 7 to 10 rooms, not really knowing if the commissioners were going to attend or not, just to make sure that they would have rooms available, and then cancel those rooms if they're not needed.
No, that should be.
I don't want to get into that situation because I don't think that's really prudent.
That should be an issue that be brought to the whole conference, because it's a serious thing. It's really an inconvenience for those of us that are trying to follow the rules. I agree. Thank you.
And Chair Welt, members of the commission, if for those of you who would like to attend, if you can send me an email with your check-in, check-out date, and if you have anyone joining you, if you would like them to attend any of the dinners, there's another rate for that as well.
And the mobile workshop.
And the mobile workshop, correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Question, Mr. Chair. So, unless my calendar just hasn't been updated, do we still have a LAFCO meeting then on October 4th, or are we going to?
It's the fall. We put it off for a week.
We moved it off till the 11th?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
That was last month, or
Okay.
in June.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item is business item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to consider designating voting delegates for the 2018 LAFCO Annual Conference business meeting.
Paul?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the commission needs to delegate a regular voting member delegate and a alternate. And in the past, depending on who's been at the conference, it's been the chairman and vice chair. I think that we discussed that you will be attending the conference and would be, in that regard, of the voting delegate. So we need to establish an alternate and out of who's going to be attending. I don't think Steve is going to be attending, so he's the vice chair.
Okay. Steve's not going. Anybody interested in being the backup who's going to attend?
I don't have any way to get there. I'm completely in the dark in terms of transportation.
Oh,
and all
no.
that, so I just don't think I should.
Are you going, Jim?
Yeah, I plan on going. I'll be happy to be the alternate.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. The next item of business is item number 3. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Mr. Chair, I
Sure.
think if you're making an appointment, a motion and vote would be appropriate,
Okay,
even though it was a volunteer.
understood. All right. I'll accept a motion to...
I'll make a motion that we appoint Commissioner Richardson as the alternate voting member.
So move. Second?
And,
Thank you.
Chair.
and you as the voting member.
And me as the voting member? An amendment? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Motion, you.
All right, thank you. All those in favor signify by, roll call.
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Ishganian?
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino? Aye. Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Chair Welt?
Aye. Okay, moving on here. Number 3, the next item of business is item number 3. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, business item number 3 is to consider making nominations for the 2018 through 2019 Cal-LAFCO Board of Directors.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have several vacancies. I brought this up at the June meeting as well on the Cal-LAFCO Board of Directors. And since your commission is in the coastal region, there is a county member and a district member vacancy. So if you were wanting to nominate someone from Santa Barbara LAFCO to serve in that seat, we would need to file nomination papers in one of those 2 seats and file those with Cal-LAFCO. Didn't see, the deadline is September 4th, but last meeting we didn't see that there was too much interest in that. I think Commissioner Ishkanian suggested that Commissioner Geyer might be interested, since he is very interested in this kind of thing, but I'm not sure that he would want to be nominated at this point. So if anyone else is wanting to be nominated for the county or special district member seat on Cal-LAFCO, then now would be the time to do that.
Well, Roger over here sort of talked me into the idea of it. So would be happy to put my name in.
So Judith did express some interest in pursuing this, so maybe the 2 of you could have a conversation? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that direction to staff? Because we're wondering if we want a motion.
You want a motion for that?
Well, recommended. Do you want a motion? We're okay. The clerk has passed on that.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, number 4. The next item of business is business item number 4. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, business item number 4 is to consider making nominations for the 2018 Cal-LAFCO Achievement Awards.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you. Again, Mr. Chair, we had some discussion about this at the June meeting, and there was not too much interest expressed in nominating anyone for the Achievement Awards. And there's probably less interest now, since I thought the deadline was the 23rd of August, which was in the Cal-LAFCO website. But upon further review, it's August 3rd, which is tomorrow. So I'm willing to pull an all-nighter if the commission is interested in nominations. There are several types of nominations: outstanding Cal-LAFCO members, most effective commission, outstanding commissioners, LAFCO professionals, LAFCO clerk. But we definitely have some people that are qualified. The LAFCO clerk is definitely well qualified. And there's some other nomination categories. So I'll leave it up to you to make those nominations, and if you wish, or we can pass.
But you're talking about tomorrow, is it?
We're talking about tomorrow.
And in order to recognize one of our fine, no doubt worthy members for this award, we would have to force our excellent executive director to pull an all-nighter during Fiesta.
What's the pleasure of the commission? Any comments? Okay, I think we'll move on. Look forward to next year.
Mr. Chair, can we pin this on the conference facilitator as well?
I think that's only fair.
Seems fair to me.
Rather than your staff, your local staff. Yeah, I'd prefer
blame
that.
the webpage. Okay. Moving on, number 5. The next item of business is business item number 5. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the commission, business item number 5 is to consider revisions to the commission's schedule of processing fees.
Mr. Hood.
I have a brief comment on the schedule of processing fees. When we looked at the fees last month and approved the fee schedule as stated in July 1, 2017, I did have a discussion with the commissioner about trying to move some of the items around to make it more readable. And so I've made a couple of suggestions and put it on as a business item so that you can look at some changes. For instance, in the processing fee schedule, it says that annexations and detachments can be charged separately, but there are also different changes of organization, so I would change that to a change of organization rather than a detachment and annexation, because you would not be able to charge for that. And there's some other ministerial changes that I would recommend that you approve without too much discussion, I hope, because they're not really significant. And I would point out that we did receive an application this past week for an annexation, and I'll go over that in my executive officer's time, with 3 detachments. So there were 4 separate charges, and rather than a $9,000 application fee, it was $28,000 that was billed to the city of Lompoc for a reorganization. And I'll be going over that in my discussion during my executive officer's period. But as directed by the commission, I'm trying to maximize the fees that are collected based on the amount of work that is involved, and to minimize the impact on the funding agencies, which of course is the primary goal, that applicants pay their way and minimize the charges on the county, the cities, and the special districts. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any observations, comments, concerns from the commission?
I have a question, I suppose, just occurred to me. Look, if I understand the intention is that we recover the actual costs expended, what happens if the deposit, I think this may happen occasionally, if the deposit actually exceeds the actual cost? Do we refund the balance?
Yes.
So
and there'll be a tracking. We'll keep track of our time. I will keep track of my time. And we did actually make a refund about a year ago with the Santa Rita Hills Bridge and Highway District. We refunded $8,000 to that district because they never finished the application process, but they paid the fee. So we would refund any amounts that are not used.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Santa Barbara, any questions?
Yes, Commissioner Geyer. I really appreciate the work that Paul's put into this. I've pounded this drum for a long time, so I'd like to make a motion to move to accept the revised fee schedule as presented.
Is there a second?
I'm not bashful, I'll second it.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Although, roll call.
Commissioner Seves.
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Iskanian.
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino.
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson.
Aye.
Chair Walt.
Aye. Thank you. The next item is information item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Walt and members of the commission, informational item number 1 is to receive and file a report on the Isla Vista Community Services District Municipal Service Review.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The commission, I'm sure, is aware that in the June 5th, 2018 election that the utility user tax for the Isla Vista Community Services District was approved. And the commission's resolution is very explicit in the regard to what happens when the utility user tax is approved. And it says that the commission shall engage upon a municipal service review to be heard on March 17th or 1 year after the approval of a utility user tax. So we will initiate, and I've advised the Isla Vista CSD general manager that we'll be looking at a municipal service review for that district that should be approved by June 5th, 2019. That we will determine at that point what services are being provided, the amount of funding that is being provided for each of those services that are outlined in the staff report, including the Municipal Advisory Council, tenant mediation program, and the list that's on page 2 of the staff report, and determine which of those services are latent powers. And then they will be defined as latent, and to exercise those powers to become active again, they will need to have LAFCO review and approval, and a plan for services would need to be provided. It's not, necessary. It's not required that they simply list the services. There needs to be some funding and some type of exercise of that power for it to become one of the active powers. The remainder of those 7, 8, 9 services will become latent, as well as other services that CSDs, community services districts, can provide in the future, including, you know, water, sewer, and that kind of thing, if they decide to move ahead with that. And you know, they have districts that provide those services now. So that's just an FYI, you know, for your information, that we'll be going back and doing a municipal service review, and we'll begin that process probably within 6 months. So we'll have something that would be available, you know, by the June deadline, the June 5th, 2019 deadline.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Are there any comments or questions from the commission? Commissioner Richardson.
Yeah, my question is regarding the latent issue. The items A through H, the schedule of services. If anything outside of that is not permitted, or anything outside of that is latent.
Commissioner Richardson, these are the only services that are authorized by, you know, the Assembly bill that was initiated the Isla Vista CSD. So anything else is not active at this point. So if they wanted to come back and exercise anything outside of this list, which are the general services of community services districts, they would need to come to LAFCO. Okay. That's specified in the legislation.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I was just going to make a comment to Commissioner Richardson. It's assumed that the district won't want to do all of these powers. It'll be too much for the district given the money they'll have available on the tax revenues. So I think the assumption is they'll meet and decide what their priorities are, and then they'll identify what services they want to provide with the money they've got. And then LAFCO will do the MSR review and make, you know, confirm that determination, and then we'll know what their authority is and what they've not pursued, something like that.
My thoughts go back to ID1 and their indication that sewage is a latent service that they can provide, and I'm wondering if something like that could pop its ugly head up on, as far as latent services. It cannot.
Well, that's a little different issue outside of the Isla Vista CSD, and we had some discussion at that time about, does ID1 or the water district, conservation district, have sewer powers? And some of that discussion was predicated upon the formation of the Los Olivos CSD and some alternative service providers, including the Santa Ynez CSD, the formation of a new district, or ID1. At that point, we were approached, and the district manager for ID1 appeared at one of your LAFCO commission meetings, and it was not really clear if that was a latent power or not. We read the legislation. We didn't see that was a power of an irrigation district or a water conservation district. So I don't think it's latent.
So something like that won't happen with Isla Vista CSD?
No.
Thank you.
Hopefully not.
Thank you. Commissioner Stark?
Yes. I think I'd like some confirmation is this. The AB3 says that we have to hear the municipal service review within 1 year from the passage of the tax. If there is for some reason a dispute when it gets to the hearing about whether something's latent or not, or whether something that they do is properly categorized or not, am I correct in assuming that once we start the hearing, we can continue it till we resolve any of these questions? I mean, you can foresee any one of a number of things in which we might not quite see eye to eye with the district.
Yeah, I think that would be possible, and this was contained in the LAFCO resolution.
Yes.
And it was not in the legislation.
No, I guess that means we get to interpret it.
Yeah, we get to interpret it as a LAFCO commission.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, observations? If not, we're moving along here. The next item is information item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the Commission, informational item number 2 is to receive and file a status report on the 2016 through 2017 fiscal year billings from the County Assessor and County Elections.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. This is something that I've been bringing back to your Commission for months as payments were made to reimburse your Commission for the 2016-17 billings by the Assessor and County Elections. And you'll be pleased to know that the Los Olivos proponents have paid the final payment on the billings that they were billed, and you'll be happy to know that this won't be coming back to you again. And also, they just to show that they were really determined to make the final payment, they paid twice. So we're actually in the process now of reimbursing the proponents with a refund. So we're not going to charge them for that, but we're going to refund the amount of money that they paid twice. So
thank you.
They zeroed out.
Any comments, questions from the Commission? Mr. Stark? Okay. The next item is information item number 3. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Welt and members of the Commission, informational item number 3 is to receive and file a status report on the 2018 CalLAFCO pending legislation.
Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a legislative action that was kind of interesting by the CalLAFCO Board of Directors on the Omnibus Bill. AB 3254 was approved and signed by Governor Brown on July 6th, I believe. And it's pretty much a cleanup bill. I have the changes if you want me to read through them, but I think they're non-substantive and deal with such things as affected territory definitions and some other items that are interesting to those who have some confusion reading through the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act. But it was a kind of the big omnibus bill for the year for CalLAFCO and was signed and approved. And so I'm just happy to report that. It's an information item.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Any questions, observations from the Commission? If not, we will move into Commissioner announcements and any requests for future agenda items. Not hearing anything, we will continue to move on here. The executive officer's comments. Mr. Hood.
A few things I wanted to mention to you. I mentioned the Bailey Avenue reorganization that was filed last week with your commission, 150 acres of ag land to the city of Lompoc, and dissolution, or some detachments, I mean, from several special districts. It's agricultural land. And will be required to have a property tax negotiation between the county and the city to negotiate any exchange of property tax revenue. There was an environmental document that was submitted to us, and the application fee was around $28,000. That was they're actually paying the remainder of the fee right as we speak. I think the checks are in the mail. So we are moving ahead with the fees on that and also processing the application. It should be a very controversial item. As you know, I've been reporting on this for several months. So we'll see how that goes and how it plays out during the next few months. San Antonio Basin Water District, that we've been working on the legal description for the groundwater management SGMA requirements, is getting pretty close to being finalized and submitted to LAFCO. We'll have that as an active proposal within the next, I hope, the next few weeks, and be presenting that to your commission fairly soon. There was some discussion about the Board of Equalization requirements for filing, and legal counsel and myself are discussing if it's necessary, since the district will be collecting its own assessments from a Prop 218 election. We're not sure it needs to be filed, because it will not create a new tax rate area that would require the State Board of Equalization action. One thing that was continued and pulled off the agenda last week was an out-of-agency service agreement. The City of Santa Maria had filed an application a couple of months ago for a 35-acre parcel OS cooler that was located off Rosemary Drive that had a health and safety issue, that their employees were using a well that had a health and safety issue with it. So the city was wanting to connect it to the adjacent water main that flows into the city and goes right next to the property. In 2008, it was approved by the county, and there was an addendum to an environmental impact report that was prepared that was relied upon by the city in filing the out-of-agency service agreement. We are now working with county planning and building to see if that document is adequate in terms of growth-inducing impact, if it was addressed or if it was not addressed. So we'll see how that goes, and legal counsel and myself are working with planning and development.
Any idea when that might come back to us?
I'm hoping, they wanted some additional time to respond. I'm hoping it would be on the September 6th agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hood. Anything else?
One last thing, the Montecito Association is wanting to look at incorporation or consolidation of their special districts. They have a sanitary, a water, and a fire district, or some other alternatives to do something. I'm not really sure what at this point. Incorporations, as you know, there's not been an incorporation in the state for the past 12 or 15 years. So there was some pretty onerous requirements for revenue neutrality. Goleta Incorporated, there was a big negotiation about how the county would be impacted by the incorporation of a new city. And wanting, my presentation to them on September 10th is going to be informational. The last time this was done was in 2008. Your previous executive officer made a presentation to them, and it didn't go anywhere as far as looking at incorporation or consolidations of districts. I only bring that up in case there is a newspaper article that says your executive officer presented to them, and I wanted you to know ahead of time that I'm going to be doing that.
Thank you.
A question on that? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Paul, explain to me consolidation of districts. Would it be like what else would they form? Like a CSD? Or?
Yeah, they would form a community services district, or they could be a district that has latent powers, water district or a sanitary district that can provide all of the services. The fire district is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah.
There's 3 districts, sanitary, water, and fire, that could be consolidated into a CSD, or one of the districts could be using latent power to provide services.
Okay.
Thank you.
On this.
Please, go ahead.
Well, I do have one question about consolidation. Is it subject to a feasibility analysis by LAFCO, so that if one district is completely solvent and coherent and the other has 6 to 8 legal cases against it and massive debt, would that be considered an unequal yoking?
I don't think they've reached that point. I think
well, it's like
my
a hostile takeover this time.
Yeah.
My discussion with the Montecito Association is that this is going to be an information item.
Oh, the association asked you to include that. This is all.
Yes.
They're collecting information. Good.
Yes, I think so. And I don't have a position on it.
I don't think the fire department wishes to be discussed at the present time.
Well, they can be discussed, but it's not something that would be, mean that they would be consolidated or dissolved or anything like that. This is very preliminary.
I did have one that I missed under commissioner announcements. In our valley, there has been a proponent, Save Our Valley, and was also organized the Los Olivos, and I don't, CSD, and his name was Doug Herthel, and he passed away. And he was a very well-known person in the valley, and so I just thought I'd let you know that he was a unreal equine veterinarian known all over probably the country and the world. Yes.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Seymour, thank you.
And his son, Mark Herthel, has been here many times.
Yes, he has.
Working on the Los Olivos Consolidated District.
Yes, thank you for that. Mr. Hood, anything else?
No, that's all I had.
All right,
Thank
any
you, Mr.
questions,
Chairman.
observations?
A brief question regarding the facility, where we're going for the conference. Is there any reason that we cannot get additional rooms in that facility and pay their going rate?
I think you should mention that, because I made a phone call yesterday and tried to do that very same thing. Not for, well, for all the commissioners, right? But mainly, for me, when I was thinking, could I just pay, my own way and, pay anything over above the conference rate? And there was one room available Tuesday night. And then there was a second room available Wednesday night, which was a suite, but you would have to move. And then Thursday night, there was nothing available in the whole hotel. So I didn't think your commission would be interested in that option.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Why don't y'all stay in one room?
Yeah, the bunkhouse. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to adjourn this meeting to Thursday, September the 6th in Santa Barbara at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. And again, welcome aboard, David Seymour.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, we'll be meeting with David in the next few weeks to orient him a little bit. Bill and I usually meet with new commissioners.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yep, well done. Well done, everybody.